Welcome back. We're here for video 14 now in the series of building the coaling tower, so stay tuned. So welcome back, like I said, and welcome to my new subscribers. You know, this has been a long video series. If you're just joining the channel, there's a lot of good information in the previous videos. And you know, I have put out tons of videos down through the last several years of building a lot of different types of things, whether it's iron work or, you know, wooden buildings, brick buildings, steel structures, just tons of things that you know you can learn from, as well as some odd videos here and there on memorabilia and paper, you know, just all kinds of subject matter out there. And you know, go back to my playlist on YouTube and find some of those other things. There may be things you're interested in. I have a lot of quick builds out there, whether it's billboards, milk houses, fire boxes, which every yard in, you know, in the country, really, no matter what railroad you used, had little red fire boxes around the yards, you know. So there's lots of things here that apply to all railroads, and you know, a lot of techniques to apply to any building you're modeling, no matter what railroad, city, or where you come from. You know, there's a lot of good material here. So in any case, I've got a punch list put together for this building. We're going to backtrack, start taking care of little odds and ends on this building, and we still have ladders and platforms and all that type of thing to build for this structure as well. So I'm just going to jump into this now and see what we can get done in this video. Now, I kind of got enthused about putting this electrical system on the back side of this building. And you know, I don't have any pictures. I don't know that that's really what was back here, but the power had to come into the building somewhere. This is one of the few pictures I have, but at this point in time during this building's history, you know, I don't know how much of anything was left on this back side. And this is the way we left the building in the last video. I had this ladder that came up to the platform underneath of that, and we had some of the conduits from either side coming in that could be ran in there to a big old electrical box. So, you know, I'm going to start with that electrical box to begin with. You know, back in the day, it might have had fuses or Lord knows what, you know, big old power switches. I don't know what would have been in this, but there would have been some type of a box. So I'm just taking two pieces of this wood that'll give me a nice thick box, and I'm gluing those together. And once the glue sets up, I just take that out of these, you know, this clip here, and cut the sides together and sand those down so that all four sides of this are really smooth. Now later on, I am going to come back with some of that nylon filler and fill the edges, because the seams do show. Now for a door on the front of this, I use some of this real thin for sale sign plastic like I do everything else. It ends up being just a little thick, and I cut a small piece of plastic just for a handle on the right hand side. I probably could have used paper for this, and it would have been maybe a little more realistic than this thick plastic. Even though it's really thin, it was just, you know, a little bit too thick probably. But when I'm gluing plastic to wood, I like to use this old-fashioned Testors model glue. It just gives really good adhesion between wood and plastic. And if you try to pull it apart, you know, you take wood on pieces of plastic with it, it really adheres really well. And I glue that door onto the front of the electrical box. And then I go outside and paint it, and that's when I noticed the seams in the two pieces of wood. So I came back here and put nylon filter or filler in there, and then repainted the box. Now there would have been a way to attach this onto the wall, so I'm just going to use these real small I-beams, and I'm going to cut two pieces to mount behind that box and mount onto the wall. So once I cut the lengths of those and go outside and paint them, I come back and scrape a little paint off where they're going to glue to the box, and then I go ahead and adhere that together to get this one assembly finished. And here you can see it's ready to mount onto the wall at this point in time. Now there's really three assemblies kind of that will make up this whole power thing back here. The one at the very top would have been A big piece of wood with glass insulators were the main power lines from the power lines coming into the structure would have had cables that came to. And I took this I-beam and some just plain square stock plastic and made these angles and put them on flat plate as brackets for that big I-beam, or wooden beam, excuse me, that would have set on top of those to bring the power in. Now I go ahead and cut a big square piece of wood to use for that beam on top, and then I go ahead and put some stain on that. And at the same time I'm waiting for this to dry, I go outside and get some black paint on all the plastic. So then I have the two different parts that will make up this assembly. And you know, I like the stained wood. It could have been a little different in color, but I think it's going to work for what I need. So I'm just going to go ahead and glue this on top of those two brackets. And then the insulators would have set on top of these that would have brought the power into the building. And once I have that whole bracket assembly put together, I go ahead and mount those onto the wall, because everything else that needs to be done can be added to this while it's on the wall. And the other part that actually is part of this assembly itself are actually the insulators that would have went on top. And you know, back in the day they could have been ceramic or glass, and the closest thing I have to something like that are really these glass beads. I like the size of these, and the hole in the center, you know, would have been somewhat typical, even though they're not perfect, you know, exactly like the original insulators were, I'm sure. But I take 3 of these out, and then I come back and just glue those onto the top of the pieces of that wood, and then I have my 3 insulators where the power would have came in from the electric lines to this building. Now between the 2 assemblies that I just made, there also would have been a big standpipe that came up and would have brought, you know, the power lines from that down to the electrical box. And I'm just going to take a piece of this sprue and I'm going to cut a couple of pieces. On top of that pipe there would have been a 180 turn in the pipe to keep the rain from going into the pipe and down into the electrical box. So I'm cutting 4 corners off of this sprue to give me the 180 bend that goes on top of that pipe. And I clean them up to some degree, and then I come back and glue those 2 together, and I basically have my 180 degree turn that goes on top of that pipe. Now this isn't perfect, but I think once I get paint on it, I think it's going to look okay. And I went through my box and I found some round styrene about the same size as those upper parts. So I'm just going to come back and then glue those onto the top of that pipe. And then this would have came down to the electrical box from there. So this gives me the basic pipe together to do that. Now connecting the top of this pipe into those glass beads, there would have been power lines. So I just went through and cut some 3 pieces of thread, and I'm going to glue those under the open end of that pipe. And then once that's in there, that gives me the ability that once I get this finished and get it in place on the building, I can come back and attach these threads to each of those insulators, and I have a way to get power from the insulators into the building. Then I take this outside and paint it, and you know, basically I have the structure. I did go ahead and cut it to the right height. I held the box up there to the building and just put this in place, and you know, I'm going to run this behind the box instead of directly into the top. So by doing that, I could go ahead and get my length, so I pre-cut the length. Now, you know, I went ahead and put this up there and glued it into place. Now the box will mount over the bottom side of it, and of course these cables will connect to the glass insulators up above. And once that had dried and set up well enough, I went ahead and mounted my box down on the bottom part of that where all the other conduits will come into from the bottom. And basically that's the basic assembly done on, you know, for this electrical unit. You can see here I went ahead and glued the cables coming down to the glass insulators, and the other wires would come in from a telephone pole to that. Now we're going to backtrack here, and we're going to finish a project I'd meant to start before and couldn't figure out how to do. So I'm going to use this styrene here, and I'm going to cut parts and make steps to go underneath those 2 ladders on the end of those concrete abutments. So I just make 2 little tiny pieces that come out from the abutment on either side, and I turn those on their edge, and then I lay 1 flat piece across the top of them for the stair tread. And this is just, these are tiny pieces, so this is just a kind of a long drawn out process with tweezers. Tweezers are your best friend when you're working on something really tiny, just something you need to get used to using. And then once I come back and get all those made and put paint on all of them, then I come back and mount those to all those abutments. And basically, this abutment's done here, then I get the other one done, and that's just one more step in the backtracking of little things that need to be done to get this building complete. And here you can see, once that power assembly's on up there, and these, we've got just a few little pieces of conduit to add to bring those powers into the box up there, but basically that's everything on that part of the building completed. Now I showed you where we were making this assembly before, and I'm holding this up here with a ladder coming down to that building so I can figure exactly how the stairs are going to tie into this. And then I come back once I've figured that out, and I start putting stanchions on this. Now the side to the left is also going to have stairs coming down from another platform, and then this right hand side will get stanchions that return back to the building. So I'm just going to go ahead and get all the stanchions glued onto this so I can put some paint on it. And all this, now that I'm coming back and just finishing little areas, it's all coming together on the building rather well. And once I have this to this point, then I'm going to go out and put paint on it. Now I do come back and I remove the paint in the 2 areas where both the stairs assemblies are going to attach to this. But once I get those that paint removed, then I can come back and I can apply it onto the building. And that's, another platform done. We only have one other small platform to work on to finish the stairs, on that part of the building. And that's this one, which we had previously started when I started that last assembly as well. So I need to come back and work more on this and get it ready to go onto the building as well. And this would have had 2 stairs that went off the long side of it, one coming down from above and the other one going down on the right hand side of the back side of this. So I just put the stanchions in place and come back and start putting all the handrails on this as well. And once I have those glued and coming back a second and third time and re-gluing them and and then I get the ends handrails on this side. And basically, that's the basic platform of that one done. That's the last platform, at least, that we'll have to build. So I go outside and put paint on that, and now we have it ready. It's going to have legs and supports to put on the building, but basically that's that one done at this point in time as well. So there you have video 15 in the or 14 in the series of building the coaling tower. As I'm recording this, I've already started playing with the parts for video 15. Hopefully I can get it done in 15. I don't know. It just takes so long to do some of these little detail parts. And to save time, I work on 2 or 3 little things at a time. And, while glue is drying on one thing, I can be working on another. And then when paint's drying on that, I can start another while I'm gluing on that, And that does save some time, but still with my business, most of you know that I do landscaping, but I grow nursery stock, and I raise fruit and I grow cut flowers for the floral industry, and I'm already starting to start seeds and do things like that for this next year's growing season. And my work is my priority because that's what pays my bills, and it gives me a little bit of money for this. But in any case, it just takes time to do this. Now, I got a fair amount done in this video, and hopefully in the next video, maybe we can get it done. I don't know. We'll see. There's still a lot to do on this building. I'm working on the punch list. For those of you that don't know what a punch list is, I was in the building industry for years, And you know, when you get close to being done with a building, you do a walkthrough and you start pointing out all the little things that need to be finished. And then you come back and make a list, and that's your punch list. So we're starting to do the punch list on this. There's still a good bit to do on this building, so we'll work on that in the next video. So thank you again for coming back and sharing this time with me. I do appreciate it. You know, jump out there and scratch build something. I'm going to say this in every video I make. You know, just enjoy your hobby. You know, scratch build a building for your layout that nobody else will have, and happy model railroading.